Bonjour tout le monde! Today we're going to talk about regular ER verbs in French, or les verbes en ER. So regular verbs in French are sets of verbs that can be conjugated with a pattern. So they have two steps, and then each of the subject pronouns, depending on who's doing the action, will have a different ending when you're writing. And that sometimes will affect the different pronunciation of each way to say the verb. So ER verbs are the verbs whose last two letters are ER. There are also IR and RE verbs. So first definition that we need to know about this is the infinitive, or the infinitive. The infinitive of a verb is the non-conjugated form of a verb. In English, the non-conjugated form of a verb has to before it. For example, to eat, to run, to cry. All of those are infinitives. In French, the infinitive has an ER, IR, or RE at the end. Those are not conjugated forms of the verb. For example, if we look at ARRIVEZ, ARRIVEZ has an ER at the end. That ER means that ARRIVEZ has not yet been conjugated. You will find the non-conjugated form, or the infinitive, in the dictionary when you look up a verb. So there are two steps to conjugating a regular verb. But what's conjugation? Conjugation is when you're changing the verb to make sense with the subject. For example, in English, we can say I eat, but he eats. You'll see that I conjugated to eat. In the I form is I eat. The you form, it's you eat. But the he form, in the she form, it's he or she eats, so I add an S. In French, just about all of the different subject pronouns, I, you, he, she, je, tu, il, elle, they all change their ending. So in order to conjugate these for it to make sense, instead of saying he eat, that doesn't make sense. We're going to do these two steps to do that conjugation. So the first step is to drop the infinitive ending. Remember, the infinitive ending is those last two letters. So for an ER verb, for example, like parler or arriver, the ER is the ending. Then you're going to add your present tense ending according to your subject. And each subject has a different present tense ending. For the je form, it's E, tu, ES, il, elle, E, nous, ONS, vous, EZ, and il, plural, ENT. I'm going to show you a chart with that, so don't worry. So first, let's look at the verb arriver, which means to arrive. So my first step of conjugating arriver is to get rid of the ER. And that gives me what's called my radical, or my stem. So arrive is my stem for arriver, my radical. Then you'll see that the ending for the je form is E, tu, ES, il, elle, E, nous, ONS, vous, EZ, il, elle, ENT. So I need to add one of these endings to arrive, the stem or radical, in order to make it make sense. And that depends on who is doing the action. For example, if my subject is je, I'll add an E, j'arrive. Don't forget, when we have a verb that starts with a vowel, my je is going to turn into a J apostrophe. Then, if my subject is tu, I'm going to go here and I'll add an ES, tu arrive. The pronunciation is about the same. Then if my subject is il, I add an E, il arrive. Elle, same thing, elle arrive with an E at the end. On, and on means one. It's like the impersonal. If you don't know who it is that you're talking to, then you're going to use on. In English, a lot of times we are going to use you for this, just like, oh, how do you drive? Well, in French, you would say on instead of you. You would say, comment est-ce qu'on conduit? Okay? So for on as my subject, arrive with an E because il, elle, and on all add an E. Then we have nous, arrivons, nous arrivons, ONS. Vous, vous arrivez, EZ. Il plural, arrive, ils arrivent, ENT. Elle plural, elles arrivent, ENT. Now, you will notice that with ER verbs, the je, tu, il, elle, and on, il and elle plural are all pronounced the same way. So if we go back, you'll remember we had j'arrive, tu arrives, il arrive, elle arrive, on arrive, and then we skip to ils arrivent, elles arrivent. So basically, this is called the boot. If it's in the boot, if you like drew a line around this part of the chart, it would make a boot. If it's in the boot, it's pronounced the same way. Now, there are special verbs that do what is called a stem change. So they're going to change just a little bit in their radical, the stem, whatever is left after you drop the ER. Just a little bit, only in the new form. The new form here, that is the only time you're going to have that stem change for these verbs. This only happens with GER verbs, so verbs that end in GER, and CER verbs, verbs that end in CER. Let's see an example. Our first example is manger, to eat. You'll notice that it's a GER verb. It has GER at the end. And we have this special stem change. All of the other ones, they all follow the regular rules where you drop the ending, which is the ER, and add your new ending, which for the je is E. Je mange. Tu, ES. Tu manges. Il, elle, on. Mange with an E at the end. Vous mangez, just EZ. Il, elle, plural. Mange, ENT. But look at the new form. In the new form, it actually has an extra E. Mangeons. Sorry, it went on to another line, but it's mangeons. MANGEONS. The reason for that is because without the E, that would be pronounced mangon, and that's kind of gross. French is all about sounding pretty, so it needs to be mangeons. Same thing happens with CER verbs, like commencer. So we see, je commence, tu commences, il, elle, on commence, vous commencez, il, elle commence. For the new form, we're actually going to add this cédille underneath. You see that? Cédille, because it makes an S sound. So that C just turns into a si cédille. Commençons. Sounds much better than commençons. And that is it and all you need to know about regular ER verbs. Très bien, à bientôt.